April 21st, 2025, just before dawn. The skyline of Sanaa, normally quiet in the early hours, is suddenly split by the roar of afterburners. No warning, no chatter, just the unmistakable sound of U.S. fighter jets slicing across the dark sky. And then, impact. Bright flashes, low rumbles echoing off the mountains, shockwaves rolling through the capital. For a few brief minutes, the entire city holds its breath. This wasn't a strike on a weapons depot tucked away in a desert. This was downtown, the Houthi stronghold, their capital, their nerve center. And it just got hit. But this wasn't just about destruction. This was message delivery at Mach speed. For weeks, the Houthis had escalated, threatening shipping lanes, launching drones, testing the limits of U.S. patience. They thought the line wouldn't move, that Washington wouldn't dare hit this deep. They were wrong. What happened over Sanaa wasn't a warning shot. It was precision warfare, coordinated, deliberate, and executed by elite U.S. pilots flying some of the most advanced aircraft on Earth. And while the media scrambled for details and officials remained tight-lipped, one thing was clear. This strike had a purpose. It didn't just shake the ground, it shook the rules. Because hitting a target in the heart of enemy territory, at the center of their command infrastructure, isn't routine. It's bold, it's calculated, and it means something bigger is in motion. So what was the real target that night? How did the US pull it off without warning? And what happened next that no one expected? What followed those first flashes over Sanaa wasn't chaos, it was choreography. This was not a random airstrike. It wasn't retaliation for a single incident. This was something else. A message sent in the language of precision munitions and supersonic delivery. The jets that screamed over the skyline weren't just patrolling, they were there for one reason: a high-priority strike deep in hostile territory. U.S. defense officials would later confirm a coordinated precision strike on what they called a Houthi military target in the capital. No further details, no official list of what exactly was hit, but satellite images told the rest of the story. A facility tucked between residential blocks, one used as a media center and later reappropriated by Houthi command, was reduced to rubble. Infrared scans showed unusual levels of thermal activity in the hours leading up to the attack, possibly indicating high-level coordination meetings or data transmissions. Whatever was going on inside that building, it drew the attention of American surveillance. And once confirmed, it became a target. The strike occurred just before sunrise. The timing wasn't coincidence. It was the window when command centers are fully staffed but still shrouded in low-light conditions, difficult to see from the ground, but crystal clear from 35,000 feet. And the platform chosen for the job? Likely the F-15 Strike Eagle or the carrier-based F/A-18 Super Hornet, both capable of operating with precision in urban environments, equipped with JDAMs, GPS-guided bombs designed to minimize collateral damage while maximizing impact. Eyewitnesses described the roar of jets, followed by a low rumble, then silence. No sirens, no anti-air systems, just the crack of impact and the hum of aftershock. Within minutes, footage began circulating online. The Houthis remained quiet. No claims of a counterstrike, no immediate public reaction. That silence said more than words. U.S. Central Command remained equally tight-lipped, releasing only a short statement. The strike was intended to disrupt hostile operations and prevent future threats to international shipping. But beneath the surface, this was far more than a reaction to one drone launch or a missile threat. The location was strategic. Sanaa isn't just a city, it's a symbol. It's the heart of Houthi command, communications, and coordination. Hitting it, especially from the air, requires confidence, intelligence, and intent. It's a line that hasn't been crossed often. So why now? Some analysts believe that the target was tied to recent surveillance pickups. encrypted transmissions, unusual troop movements, signals intelligence suggesting a major operation was in the works, possibly another wave of Red Sea drone attacks. If that's true, the US may have struck just in time to prevent something larger. Still, striking a capital city is a major decision, one that carries consequences, not just tactically, but diplomatically. And yet, this time, the US didn't hesitate. Because in modern conflict, hesitation is sometimes more dangerous than action. This wasn't a declaration of war, but it was a warning. Clear, precise, and impossible to ignore. And for those watching from afar, whether in Tehran, Beirut, or elsewhere, the real message might not have been in what was hit, but in how fast, how far, and how deeply the United States was willing to reach. Long before the first bombs dropped over Sanaa, the operation had already begun, not in the skies, but in the silence above them. For weeks, U.S. surveillance assets had been watching. Drones circled high above Yemeni airspace. Signals intelligence teams listened for encrypted transmissions. Satellites traced vehicle patterns, power surges, and unusual activity within specific city blocks. The capital wasn't just being monitored, it was being mapped, layer by layer. The United States had no interest in striking a densely populated capital without certainty. This had to be surgical, pinpointed, verified not once, but several times over. And the target? It wasn't a weapons depot or a launch pad. It was something more sensitive. According to regional defense analysts, the site was flagged after a pattern of signals emerged. Encrypted comms bouncing between Sanaa and known Houthi drone launch positions near the Red Sea. The theory was a centralized command hub, managing unmanned operations, possibly even connected to surveillance of U.S. and Allied naval movements. Once the link was confirmed, things moved fast. Specialized reconnaissance flights, likely RQ-4 Global Hawks or MQ-9 Reapers, began circling the area at high altitude. Their sensors weren't just looking for visuals. They scanned for heat signatures, radio patterns, movement rhythms. Every byte of data was pulled into mission planning centers from Diego Garcia to CENTCOM HQ in Tampa. The pattern grew clearer. Inside the city block, activity surged between 0100 and 0400 local time, exactly the window when most Houthi drone launches had occurred in previous attacks. Vehicles came and went. Cell towers flickered with bursts of encrypted traffic. Power grids spiked and dipped. The signs weren't obvious to the public, but to analysts, it painted a picture. Something was being coordinated there. Something that couldn't be ignored. When the green light came, everything was already in place. The jets, whether launched from a carrier like the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower or from coalition bases in the Gulf, had a clear flight path, an exact payload, and a precise drop window. They flew in low, fast, and with silent coordination from AWACS and KC-135 tankers keeping watch in the distance. There was no room for improvisation. This wasn't just about hitting a building, it was about disrupting a network, ending an operation before it could even begin. And that kind of strike, the one that no one sees coming, no one hears about until it's done, that's the kind that the US saves for only the most important targets. Because in modern warfare, the most powerful move isn't always the loudest one. Sometimes it's the one that starts long before the world even knows it's happening. Timing in modern warfare is everything. And when the US sent jets roaring into the skies over Sanaa, it wasn't just reacting, it was choosing a moment. One that had been building for weeks, if not months. The Houthis had been escalating. Drone swarms in the Red Sea, anti-ship missiles launched toward commercial vessels, intercepts by US destroyers becoming routine. Each event pushed the edge a little further. And then came the tipping point. Credible intelligence that a larger, more coordinated strike was imminent, not at sea, but likely across multiple domains. this was the context. And it's why Sanaa, normally off limits due to its dense population and political sensitivity, suddenly became the center of gravity. The US had a choice: wait for the next Houthi move and risk escalation, or remove the board piece before the play. They chose the latter. Striking the capital wasn't symbolic, it was strategic. It targeted the brains, not the fists, disrupted the command nodes, severed the digital veins, and you stalled the offensive before it reaches the launch pad. But there was more at play. Intelligence suggested increased Iranian support flowing into Houthi networks, encrypted communications, technical guidance, and even logistical facilitation. While the US didn't say it outright, analysts believe the Sanaa strike served a dual purpose, not only degrading the Houthis' capabilities, but also sending a clear message to Tehran. We're watching, and we're not waiting. And the choice of assets underscored that message. Fighter jets, not drones. Live pilots, precision ordnance, a fully manned operation. That speaks volumes in military terms. It says, we're confident, we're committed, and we're ready to go deep when we need to. The strike also reasserted a simple but powerful doctrine. The US will defend freedom of navigation and disrupt any network that tries to interfere with global trade routes, no matter where that network hides. And where better to prove that point than at the heart of Houthi power? This wasn't about annihilation. It was about momentum, shifting the tempo back into American hands, seizing the initiative in a theater that had become increasingly unpredictable. Because letting the other side set the pace is how you lose control. This strike wasn't a reaction, it was a reset. And for those watching from radar rooms and satellite feeds across the region, from Iran's Quds Force to commanders in Lebanon, the message landed loud and clear. The US isn't just playing defense anymore. It's setting the terms. In the hours following the strike, one thing became immediately clear. This wasn't just a hit, it was a disruption. Across Sanaa, command centers went dark. Communications that had been steady for days fell silent. Radio frequencies that were usually alive with coded chatter now just pulsed with static. Whatever had been operating out of the targeted block wasn't just damaged, it was offline. Military analysts tracking real-time signals from the region noted an abrupt shift. Drone launches halted. Radar tracking zones went quiet. Satellite passes showed a sudden drop in ground movement from key Houthi-controlled sites near the capital and the coastal corridors. Supply vehicles that typically ran at night stopped cold. The network had been interrupted at its core. On the ground, emergency services scrambled, not just to contain fires or stabilize buildings, but to restore lines of communication. And that's where the real impact lived. Not in the smoke, but in the silence. The US didn't follow up with a wave of strikes. There was no second round, and that in itself was strategic. One hit, one message, maximum effect. And in the air, US patrols intensified. F-18s from carrier groups maintained presence across the Gulf of Aden. AWACS and tanker aircraft extended flight times, keeping around-the-clock watch on shifting patterns. The airspace around Sanaa, normally quiet outside commercial hours, was now a chessboard of invisible surveillance and fighter presence. But the Houthis? No response. No retaliatory launch. No intercept attempt. Their systems didn't just pause, they reset. And that's what made this strike different. It wasn't designed to destroy everything. It was designed to force recalibration, to change behavior by removing confidence. Before the strike, the Houthis operated on routine. Launch, relocate, rearm, repeat. But after Sanaa, that rhythm was broken. Timetables slipped. Command chains hesitated. And in warfare, even seconds of hesitation can be lethal. At the regional level, naval vessels reported cleaner airspace. Commercial traffic through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait resumed more confidently. Coalition ships encountered fewer UAV signals. The pattern of interference that had become normal faded. And perhaps the most telling of all, in digital spaces, where Houthi-aligned media and propaganda usually spike after confrontations, there was little more than silence. No bravado, no video montages, no threat-laced declarations. That silence echoed louder than any explosion. Because in this phase of the conflict, it's not just about what you can destroy, it's about what you can stop. And for now, the US had done exactly that, with one carefully placed strike and no need to say a word. The explosion in Sanaa may have rocked a city block, but the shock waves traveled much further, into boardrooms, bunkers, and briefing rooms across the Middle East. Because this wasn't just about disrupting a drone launch site. It was about making a point. And that point landed with precision in Tehran. For months, Iran had quietly supplied the Houthis with increasingly sophisticated tools. Drones, comm systems, targeting data. Not just to support a local fight, but to exert influence across the Red Sea and threaten global trade. By attacking what appeared to be a strategic coordination site inside Sanaa, the US didn't just hit a Houthi target, it undermined Iran's investment. And it did so publicly, without hesitation. This wasn't a covert raid. It was a flyover and fire mission in full view of satellites, journalists, and foreign intelligence services. The message? We see what's happening, and we can hit it whenever we want. To America's allies in the Gulf, that was reassurance. Proof that the US is still willing to act decisively in defense of regional stability. And to its rivals, it was a reminder. Even with conflicts flaring elsewhere, Washington still holds the long reach and the fast trigger. But there's more. The attack also came at a time when global supply chains are fragile, and the Red Sea has become a pressure point. With Houthi missiles previously launched at commercial shipping and drone swarms buzzing near key straits, the risk wasn't just military, it was economic. That's why the timing mattered. Striking Sanaa showed that the US is no longer just playing defense to protect its warships. It's acting to protect commerce, coordination, and credibility. And while the strike was limited in scope, the choice of target said everything. Sanaa wasn't chosen because it was easy, it was chosen because it was central. Central to Houthi operations. Central to Iranian influence. Central to the idea that proxy forces can act with impunity while remaining out of reach. No longer. And it's not just Iran watching. In Moscow, Damascus, and even Beijing, this kind of move doesn't go unnoticed. The strike signals that deep precision strikes are back on the table. And not just for full-scale wars, but for disrupting networks before they escalate. The power here wasn't just in what was destroyed. It was in how casually it was done. No press conference, no build-up, no public diplomacy. Just action. And in the realm of geopolitics, actions speak louder than doctrine. With Sanaa still reeling from the precision strike, the question now is, what comes next? U.S. naval forces remain on alert in the region. Carrier strike groups continue their presence, with patrol patterns tightening near commercial lanes and choke points like the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. A-10 squadrons from regional bases have been rotated in, likely as a show of force, or a contingency if tensions reignite. Meanwhile, intelligence analysts are watching for any signs of regrouping. The Houthis have a history of adaptation. When leadership nodes are struck, they shift into mountains, under cities, through proxies. The real test will be whether this strike delayed operations or simply relocated them. And beyond Yemen, eyes are locked on Iran. If Tehran sees this strike as a challenge rather than a message, it could escalate indirectly through its network of regional proxies. That's why US radar assets are scanning more than just the skies over Yemen. They're watching Syria, Iraq, and the Strait of Hormuz. Because when you hit the center, the edges sometimes move first. Diplomatically, the US is likely to stay quiet. No dramatic announcement, no mission accomplished moment, just results. The kind that shape battlefields without ever needing to raise a flag. But for military planners and defense analysts, the strike over Sanaa marks something else entirely. A shift in tempo, a willingness to go deeper earlier, and a reminder that silence after a strike is often just the calm before the next signal. So what started as a silent strike over a sleeping capital may end up reshaping the entire tempo of this conflict. The US didn't just respond, they acted with speed, precision, and intent. And when that kind of force is used deep inside a rebel capital, without warning and without follow-up, it's not just a strike, it's a signal. One that says, we're not waiting for the next move, we're making it. Now, the world watches for what comes next. Will the Houthis retaliate? Will Iran respond? Or is this the start of a new phase, where silence from above means something's already been set in motion? Let us know what you think in the comments. Did this strike shift the balance, or did it just push the conflict further underground? Drop your thoughts, we read every single one. And hey, if you want to go one step further and support the channel directly, join the fleet. You'll get loyalty badges, priority replies, and help us bring more real naval stories to the surface. Click join on our channel page and step aboard. Until next time, stay sharp, stay aware, and keep watching the skies.